I have very little to report. I had sent out an email update to the board last week, update on the goals. So there's some things in there. One of those things was that I was attending the New England Association of School Superintendents Conference. And that was a great conference. It was really neat to meet some superintendents from different states in New England, and just to hear perspective of what people are working on. There was a whole bunch of vendors there. I realized how these things work now. I've gotten probably 5 emails, another phone call, people trying to sell us stuff. And I keep saying, hey, we're a small district. We don't really have the money for that. We don't have the need for that. We got a small class size, and that kind of thing. So I'm, tactfully turning all these people down now that I met during the conference. You sit next to somebody, you don't know who they are, try to introduce them, they're trying to sell you something, which is all good stuff. It's just that we don't necessarily need all that. So anyway, that's my only update. And, for my next meeting, I'll have a report that'll be in your packet, because it'll be the second meeting in a month. So I'm going to stay with that schedule.
I was going to ask, how's April acclimating in the new role?
April Christensen, our new director of student services, is doing a great job. She's fitting really well with the administrative team and the staff. She's a real presence in the schools, which I think people like to see that. And she's a really, really hard worker and very capable. I think we're really fortunate to have found her.
Any other questions for Troy? I don't have anything major to report at this time. Can you hear me okay? Our mic's not on. Okay. Maybe it's just the volume. I'm not sure. Just make sure we speak right into the mic. You can take her mute off and answer, I guess. She could hear. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Let's see. So I don't really have anything to report. I know the capital plan did go over to the selectmen. It was on their agenda last night, but we were told we didn't need to attend the meeting, so I don't think they had an in-depth conversation on it. I was going to reach out to Bob this week and see where they're at with that. And that's really all I have from now in the last meeting. Yeah, that came out of it. We did get approved for the steep grant. Anything under old business? I don't think we have any old business tonight. We did leave the playground and childcare on old business for the second meeting of each month, just in case you're wondering why it's not on there, and we will keep that on there indefinitely. Okay. Nothing under new business tonight. So we're going to move right into facility and finance discussion. And we have an overview here from Bill. Bill, did you want to share anything specific to that?
Couple of questions on we had the one transfer for last month financials. I'm just wondering if we actually made that transfer. Okay, thank you. And then also, maybe this is more for Troy.
All right.
Sounds good. Next question is kind of related to the HVAC. Maybe it's more for Troy, but we talked about getting all the warranties and manuals and all that stuff either digitized or put together. I'm just wondering where the status is on that. That's related to other things that may come up for. Right.
Superintendent's been working on that.
Yeah.
So is there a timetable, I guess, would be?
We, we don't know what the situation is, so it's impossible to come up with a timetable. As soon as possible is the timetable. We've met with a couple different people who were chairs of the building committee when the building committee was active, trying to pull together pieces of the puzzle. And there seems to be like, there doesn't seem to be one binder with all the warranties like some people had hoped or had suggested that there is. Not that that's possible. Maybe we will still find it. If it exists, we don't know where it is currently. And the people we met with don't believe there is one that exists somewhere, but there may be some flash drives that people are looking for. We've also been in contact with Downs Construction, and we have a contact there who is supposed to get back to us with information. So we're hoping to be able to assemble a binder with all the warranties and all that information, but this is something that you know, I don't think that, from what I can tell, I don't think the last 3 facilities directors knew or had any of this organized from, the last 3. So it's not like they came in and was handed, here's the binder. Well, no, there is no binder that we know of at this point. We're trying really hard to figure it out. And in fact, we just met with someone 2 days ago, Randy and I put that in my report, actually, the email report. And Christine had suggested the name, and it was great. It's all the meetings we've had have been really helpful, but it's not like a quick fix and conclusive, okay, now we got it. So we're continuing to work on the project, looking everywhere through stuff, seeing if we missed stuff. I went through minutes of all the building committees, organized them by date. They're on the room in the next to my office. Looking for anything that's close to a warranty. Not really finding much that's useful at this point. So that's where we're at.
Do you think it would be helpful to reach out to Guy, who was the building manager, the head of building and facilities at the time?
We haven't done that. We could.
Because I know there was extensive discussion about this at the time that project was done, that we needed this done. And this is exactly the spot we didn't want to be in or put you in, because you're kind of going backwards on it. So I'm just curious if we maybe reach out to Guy. He's super approachable, and he may have some insight to as to where that material is located.
All right. Yeah, we will do that. We have not done that.
And what was Down's response? Because they're the ones that were supposed.
They responded to the person who was on the building committee who reached out to them, but then they have not responded to us yet.
Okay, because they're the ones that are supposed to supply all of that. So,
Yeah, and that's what we were told. We were told that they could probably give us all of that.
okay,
So I was really hopeful, but we just haven't heard back yet
Okay.
from them, and it's been a while.
okay. Let me know if there's any more prodding that needs to be done that I can help with.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe we can include an old business for the future, just to kind of keep tabs on it. Does that make any sense?
Okay.
Yeah.
For the first meeting of each month, are you okay with that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's
All right.
everything.
Do you have other questions, Alex? Okay, just really quick, Bill, the HVAC, upgrades to the control system with the software, how often are we going to be needing to do that? Do you know?
Well, I think we need to get current up to date, and then we'll just get the annual, like any software program, there'll be the annual maintenance updates.
Okay, all right.
But
And
we're not even in a position to have everything on the same version at the same level. And that's what, that's what our goal is. So then afterwards, obviously, it would just be, the annual updates that you get every year.
okay, all right, thank you. I appreciate that.
So I'm just kind of pull on that thread. So something, we missed something then for not, if we had a couple of updates, missing, since the whatever software level we had before, and then we're kind of looking at making this big influx of other changes, I guess, with the maintenance plan that we didn't follow
Well,
because I know we had some annual folks come in and go over the boilers and all that type of stuff, as far as I recall.
well, the maintenance contract got canceled under the previous facilities manager. And then he was switching companies. He didn't like the companies, and now we have switched back to New England Mechanical, who was our longtime HVAC company. Because, as you know, there are only about 2 or 3 companies that do large businesses in this area of the state. So, so Randy had New England Mechanical come in, and they brought in an engineer and start the process of, what's going on here? Can we to get the system updated? So we are working, and we do have a maintenance contract again with New England Mechanical. And we're working with them to get the system updated, and then we will continue to, work with them going forward.
All right, and then just one more quick question on the purchase property services line item. That all went into that HVAC, so we're at about 52% left in that. Do you think that we're gonna be under in that line item, knowing now what we had to pay for HVAC, or do you feel like we're still, I know you can't foresee problems, but where's your crystal ball, right? But no, looking at those numbers, if we've used half of that already and we're just into October, how do you feel about that line
Well,
item?
usually that line item is front loaded,
Mhm.
because a lot of
Okay.
stuff's done during the summer. And a lot of stuff's done before the school year starts, like we bring in people to test systems or, certify systems and stuff. So a lot of that is done in the beginning of the school year, the fire alarm system, the alarm system. Any of those type of annual inspections are done usually in the summer or in the fall. So unless there is, again, a major breakdown, we should be in good shape as far as the normal annual maintenance that we normally have.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Any other questions for Bill?
As far as comments on the financials, we'll do that for the next meeting. I'll send you some questions, but
Okay.
just have a chance to do it.
Thank you, Bill. And that brings us up to discussion on the non-lapsing account. Did you want to go ahead with that, Troy?
So you have 2 pages in your packet, and I wanted to bring 2 items to your attention and possible discussion and vote. Up to you. The first one, the STEAM program supplies on that first page, which is now listed. You had voted to approve 2,500. Remember, this is the grant that the Media Center at the elementary school got from the North Stonington Education Foundation for $8,500. And they said, okay, we're providing us a seed money with the idea that the Board of Ed will continue to supply some money to fund the program. And that's why you approved the 2,500 out of non-lapsing. What we wanted to purchase is this Lego set, kind of like, design kind of engineering type concepts. And it's 43,1205. So what I'm suggesting that you do is you approve an additional 14,005, so we can pay that entire bill out of non-lapsing, and it's a lot cleaner to just pay the whole bill out of one source versus breaking it up. But if you don't want to do that, then we'll figure out, how to cover the remaining part. But we're gonna have to figure that out, and then have the town hall write a check to this company for part of the bill.
What was that number again?
All right, so-
181205.
So, 181205. I'm sorry, 1814, hang on, wait a minute, maybe I have it wrong. All right, I think I wrote, on my report, I think I wrote 14, and it should be 12. 181205. Yeah, because, right, that's what this, I just added $1 somewhere, $2. So the total is 431205.
So you were going to take the 181205 initially from someplace in the budget to make up the difference?
Yeah, I would have to.
Because we
if they
only
want
approved
that.
2,500. So
Yeah.
you're asking us to now approve 431205 total for
Right.
that Lego.
Pay for the total bill.
Can I ask, because we also had other monies that we had approved for innovative instruction that was
Yeah.
not the STEAM related piece.
Yeah,
correct?
well, it was for PD. I believe it was 28,000 for professional development.
And do we have a plan moving forward? I guess I just want to make sure that what we don't do is create a recurring payment out of non-lapsing for this program, because the whole idea, I know we moved it because we were trying to save money in our budget, so we didn't have the increase as strong, correct? It was reallocated from the budget, it states. And
Right.
so, but our goal moving forward would be to have the consistent, this is a one-time purchase or a recurring payment that we're gonna get a new Lego set next year? Is this like the Lego robotics piece?
I think that this is yeah, but they're reusable. So it's, I think that these kits that we're buying can be used for several years. So it might be that they want something else to add to the program next year, but it shouldn't be Lego kits because they'll be getting them this year. And the Lego kits happen to cost this much.
Well, I just want to make sure, because the idea was the Ed Foundation gave the original grant and the idea that the Board of Ed would continue to fund it. And I just want us, if we're going to continue to fund it, I want to make sure that we try and put that into our budget as opposed to coming out of our non-lapsing
Yeah.
moving forward.
Agreed.
So I have no problem making a motion to approve the extra 1205 in order to cover the purchase of the Lego, as long as we understand the idea that we're moving forward with putting it into a budget line item as opposed to here.
I second that.
Okay, for discussion, I'm concerned with saying as long as we know we'll put it in for a line item budget, because we don't know if we're gonna be able to do that until we
Okay,
get
so
to
I
budget
just
season.
wanted to make
So-
sure that it's spoken that we as a board have an understanding that our goal is to keep this in the budget and not have it be a recurring non-lapsing. If you want, I'll make my motion just simply to approve the 181205 to purchase the Lego kits, and then I will make my comments during discussion.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay. Comments? Discussion?
I would just like to make sure that that we can, that looking forward as a board, we make it a priority, that we make sure that innovative instruction becomes a piece of our budget. I know that we've given a lot of word service to that, but I want to make sure that that is what we're doing moving forward, and that these pieces go into the budget when we're forming that here in the fall, setting up for this year.
Okay, so noted. Any other discussion?
What line item would it normally come under then if we do that in the future?
We created a new one this year, if I remember correctly. There was actually a separate line item specifically for innovative instruction within the budget. But then we moved it to non-lapsing, so it disappeared.
I'm just looking at
It would probably fall under instructional supply, I would think, as far as STEAM. Okay,
so that's 611.
yes.
Any reason why we just couldn't decant off of that account still, rather than go to non-lapsing, or what do you think?
I think the reason that Troy's asking us to do it this way is so that we can go to the town and get one invoice paid in full and make it clean and done, instead of having to request two separate payments out of two separate places.
Right, and I thought the amount was a relatively small amount that would be maybe just a
Yeah,
good way to do it.
understand the logistics out there. I don't know, personally, I prefer to just take it out of the instructional supplies, but if you want to do on that, then I guess it's the rest of the board can figure it out.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of funding the 18-1205 to give the full funding to the STEAM program? Aye. Opposed? Abstained.
Okay, so the other item I wanted to point your attention to is on the second page on on field improvements, baseball, softball field. And I know we had, the whole study on this, and part of it was irrigation, part of it was like cutting trenches in the field, filling them with sand and all that. But the other piece of that is just rebuilding the infields, which are the major problem with the softball and baseball fields, because it hasn't been done in 7 years or so. I think that's right. And what happens is they're built with a clay mixture. It's not just regular sand or regular dirt. It's a clay mixture that is designed for baseball and softball. And baseball and softball fields are different in size and composition, because the baseball field has grass around the mound and the softball field doesn't, right? So usually you want to do it with sod and roll that out and water it a lot and really take care of it and get it done right. And I think a lot of people, when they look at our fields, they're looking at the condition of the infields and saying, these are terrible, right? And so if we could reconstruct those, and we do have a quote to do that, and then also do the irrigation. And by the way, and Christine mentioned, we did get the second steep grant that will pay for the majority of the irrigation. We just gotta now, kind of go through that process of hiring the right company, and there's certain stipulations because it's government money. You gotta make sure you're following all those rules, kind of like we did with the blacktop. So I'm thinking it probably is a wise investment to pay for the reconstruction of the baseball and softball fields out of non-lapsing now and get it done. Get most of the work done this fall, and then do what needs to be, refurbishing it in the spring. So those fields are ready to go. All right. So the total estimate on here is $37,518. I do that all the time. Don't feel free to correct me. I always I see it correctly. It's in my head correctly. My mouth doesn't cooperate. Let me try this again. $37,580. Right?
And Diamond, we don't have to RFP.
Well, Diamond is on the state bid list. We have they're right here in the contract. Diamond, they are listed on state bid list. So according to our purchasing policy, if they're on a state bid list, we don't have to go to RFP. We could still go if we wanted. Doesn't mean we can't go, but we did hear from Tom Irwin, which is a company that did the whole ground study, that this is a really good deal with this quota. So
When
No,
it'd be two different companies one would do the baseball, softball at once. Well, yes, probably. Yeah, if we can get the irrigation. Now, remember, the irrigation, was paid for mostly by that second steep grant.
80% of it is paid for.
Yeah, 80%. It's 130,000 total for irrigation is what the quote was. So, if you can do,
We have 230 listed on the report. Is it
230 for the irrigation.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. So, so if we're paying 20% of it, we'd be paying 46,000 for the irrigation.
No, we're going to be paying
Well, we just got the grant,
Yeah.
so we didn't have time to update it. But yes, well, that's what I'm saying. Because we got that second grant, I think it could be a really good decision to move forward with both of those projects, one sooner than later, that one being the reconstruction of the baseball and softball infields. So they're ready to go. And then the irrigation, we got to wait on making sure we're following the rules about posting it, getting it out for bid and all that, and making sure we hire the company that we're supposed to hire for that. Because it's government money and there's stipulations.
Just a couple things on that too. I saw Ellen at the game tonight, so she asked if she needed to come tonight. I didn't think she did. I'm hoping I was right there. It's not really like it would be nice to have it done. They're in really, really bad shape and they need to be done. And I think when we heard from Randy a couple meetings ago as well, they need to be done. So it isn't like, oh, it'd be good if we're doing the irrigation to go ahead and maybe do that as well. It's kind of a need to do. So it would make sense to do it now when we are having this discussion about the fields, get those in place. My thought is then get the irrigation and see how those fields shape up after that before we move further with anything else. Yeah,
I agree that they should be done. They need to be done and it should be on our priority list. Absolutely. I'm in favor of that. What concerns me is, just going off the state bid list, even though we've heard it's a great deal, I would still like to see us go out for RFP, even though we don't have to, but I feel like we should.
so do you want a request for quote or you want to go for a full RFP request for bidding?
For that 37,000,
Yeah,
you were, Troy, you said that, that quote was from the state bid list.
State bid list,
And we've
yeah.
heard it's a great deal.
A company on
Yeah,
the state.
A
bid
company
list.
on the state bid list, yes.
Yeah.
What's the
Um,
longevity
Well,
of
it's a
that
good
bid
deal,
list?
but-
And I'm
yeah,
sure,
we could-
I'm just saying, if it's a great deal, that's great, but I just feel process-wise, we should go.
Right, so,
through the RFP.
I don't disagree. I think that would be a good idea possibly. One of the issues is then we gotta have someone write up that RFP with the right specs, and I don't know who's gonna do that for free or do it right for free. I mean, I don't think I can do it. And I don't know anybody who can write up the specs properly to actually go out to bid for that.
we are staying to our policy on purchasing by using the state bid list. It is listed in our purchasing policy that we just approved a few months back that we can use the state bid list in lieu of going to RFP. Just so everybody's aware, we are following policy on that.
I worry about the delay in getting it done. We've waited on a lot of things. I mean, it would be unfortunate, honestly, I'm just thinking, if there's some local company that can support the local economy and they could do the job really well, yeah, it'd be great to have them do it. But is there, I mean, maybe someone knows that there would be, and then that's the case. I think we may save $1,000 or something, but we won't get it done as quickly. And it might not get done in time because the ground is gonna freeze.
When did,
Troy,
just gonna
go
quick-
ahead.
When did we get the bid from these guys?
Fairly recently, right, Bill? But
would it be possible to take the next 2 weeks to see what the RFP options might be and how quickly we could get an RFP out and how quickly we could get a turnaround on it, just so we could take a look at it and then we could make a decision at our next meeting?
all right, so your next meeting is October 26th
Yes,
or 25th,
yeah. something like
okay?
that.
And then we gotta schedule them to do the work. And they're not gonna come probably till January when the ground's frozen.
Yeah,
So, I mean, you just risk the fields not being ready yet another year.
right.
And I think it's a real good possibility they would not be ready if we don't move on this.
Bill, do you know in the past with your experience, when you go to the state bid list, is that pretty competitive usually to what you see out there for different kinds of projects and different kinds of things being done?
Man, I have to be honest, understand the state bid list process here. Is there one company that does infields on the state bid list? Are there multiple on there? can we pull up multiple companies on the state bid list and see how they've compared to each other? The only one, okay.
I'm sorry, Bill, when you're answering questions, you don't have a microphone on so that people can't hear. There are people who watch it, not just now, but later on too.
No, I was just curious. I didn't know how the state bid list worked. So if they have a list of like, there's 6 companies in the state that all do athletic fields, could we ask all 6 of those, get 6 bids through the state bid list and say, hey, these are all pretty comparable. This one seems like a good one. We're going to go with it. It does seem weird to get just one number. And I guess that I think is probably what makes, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think it's what's making Lisa uncomfortable. It makes me uncomfortable as well, because when we're spending money in that, I mean, nobody at their own home would ever only get one quote for work. It's always minimum of 3 usually. Like, I worry about the single thing. So I was hoping if on the state bid list there were others, and we could at least see, or even talk to a school nearby and say, hey, when was the last time you got your fields redone? What did the price look like?
They all use Diamond. Diamond's the one in the area that preps all the fields for the local area.
Okay, and so, which also makes it a different thing. Like if they're the only,
Unless it's
if they're
done
the only
in-house.
game in town, then there's not, like, what difference does it make? We can't go out for quotes or bids. If they're the only game in town, then I say, if we need to have this done, if Ellen says we need to have it done, if Randy says we need to have it done, if Troy says we need to have it done, then it's something that needs to happen so that we maintain our fields. So
Agreed, if they're the only
What are
ones on
some-
the list.
What are some criteria to get onto the state bid list?
Well, the state sends out an RFP. And then anyone can apply who wants it. You don't have to. It's just, they just do a massive bid and they send it to everybody in the state. That's all that's happening there.
okay, I thought this was approved.
So, I think
Well, state
it
approved,
falls,
they could deny them.
it's sort of a specialty. And it's usually, we could talk to some landscaping businesses. And they might say, oh, yeah, we can do that. But we know that we got Diamond's name because that's who we found out in this area does other people's baseball fields. That's how we got the name. And then we contacted them last spring when this started. And they came out and looked and said, sorry, we're too busy. We can't help you right now. They're too busy doing other fields. It's one of those things, everybody wants their field done in March and then they're done. So it is somewhat of a specialty. And
All right, that's very good information to have. I did not have that prior, that they were the only game in town.
I know, as far as
I-
we
I-
know, there
I-
could be someone else, but
I asked the question because I feel I should, because if there's one number there, I feel it's my responsibility to ask those questions.
no, we've been,
I'm
and you
not
can
saying that
see
I
how
want
long this
to
is,
Put anything off.
and you can see the reason this has been dragging on so long, because it's hard to find somebody. That's why we talked about this last spring, how long we've been talking about fields since I started, which was years ago, wasn't it? And, yeah, right. Because it's been hard to find somebody and someone to come out and give us a bid.
Can I ask a question? What's the longevity of this? I'm for doing this, but I'm just curious, like, how long does this type of treatment last? Like, is it every 5 years, every 1 year, every 3?
So it would depend on how well we maintain it.
Well, that's my next question, but I'm a little
I think it's
concerned
been
about.
7 or 8 years now since we've done it, right? Is that the last number?
Been
we had?
quite a few.
So do we have
Okay. I don't think we've ever done it as long as I've been on the board, and it's been 10 years.
So do we have a robust plan to keep this going? Like, I mean, hearing from prior maintenance people who were saying we were cutting with dull blades and things like that, like, are we making steps to improve this so that maybe we can kind of push how often we need to do this?
Yeah. This will, right, that these fields will become part of our annual field maintenance plan that we will have. Now, we are working on that plan because as we, do more, like put in the irrigation, well, that now changes the plan a little bit, and so, yeah, it will become part of our annual plan that will
So what would happen is if we put them in every spring, they would come out and refresh the field.
Do you know what the cost of that would be every year?
A few $1,000s.
Okay, so we're not talking like another 30,000.
Oh, no, because this is,
yeah, reconstructing it.
Just
really.
checking
no,
to make sure.
no, yeah. Well, the so there's two things that make it worthwhile now. One, as soon as I heard they're putting in sod, you have to water. You have to water. Anyone's trying to put in sod without watering, you're wasting your money. So we're going to have the irrigation. And before we get the irrigation, I said to Randy, when you put down sod, we're going to have to water those fields every day till the sod takes. So do we have the capacities to do that? And he said, yes. This is for the baseball field. Softball field's not an issue. There's no sod. And he said, yes, we can water those fields. As soon as you put down sod, you have to water it every day until it takes.
But
And
we-
we can
and
do that.
This wouldn't be using the irrigation system that we're just getting from the steep grant because that's not going to come in time.
That will
correct?
come in the spring, right?
No,
Oh,
with the
okay.
hoses. to
Okay,
water
so
the
we're
sod.
you have a plan to like hand water.
Yes,
Okay,
exactly.
I'm
We have-
with you now. All right.
Yeah, we have hoses and sprinklers. Because it's just the infield, just where the sod is. Sod is only in the infield. The outfield, we're dealing with under the old plan. And it seems to be getting, better. And then, of course, the soccer lacrosse field's a whole nother issue. But,
All right, I guess I would make a motion to approve $37,580 from non-lapsing in order to do field improvements on the baseball and softball fields.
Second.
Is there any more discussion on that?
Like it's just to go back to Phil's question then on the 46K left on the irrigation, should it be done at the same time or just focus one thing at a time?
so
I
the irrigation's a whole
We
other
already approved.
RFP and another bid. And I'm waiting. I've contacted Irwin, who's going to write the RFP for us.
We
That's going to
already
be an
approved
official,
that.
that's going to be an officially done bid, especially since the state will come and ask for backup.
That just hasn't been updated on here, Alex. I was actually gonna bring that. I asked Bill about that at the beginning because
Yeah.
we approved it previously before we applied for the steep grant. So that money is already approved and ready to go.
But
No.
It doesn't,
it
no.
doesn't. So for the irrigation, we will do the full-blown bid. There are multiple companies that do that. We already know that. So and we did hire Irwin and Associates to write the specs for that. So that's going to follow the normal process. And we have time to do that because no one's going to be able to do it till the spring anyway.
Any other discussion? Okay. So all those in favor of approving the 37,580 to update the fields on the baseball softball with the state bid list quote from Diamond Landscapes? Okay. Opposed? Abstained. It's exciting. It's going to be great. They're in really big need for it, so it's good to see it happen,
Pay for it.
right? Thank you for doing the work.
And
Bill?
I'm sorry, I didn't put it in my report. We did not get the security grant. I don't know, we mentioned that. We did not get the security
Yeah,
grant.
I had put that in my email
it's in
report to them last week. But I did mention that we are gonna move forward anyway with the, ticket windows in the vestibules. They're just replacing the windows, so there's a slide under kind of thing, so licenses, notes can be passed through the secretaries, but what people are in the vestibule, so they don't have access to the store. Yeah, it's just pieces of glass, really. Tempered glass.
Yeah, 750 for each school. Got a
And we're
quote?
gonna be able to cover that then through the regular budget.
Yes,
Bill-
Okay.
so we'll
Bill's
take it
wallet.
off the non-lapsing
Bill's
list.
paying for those?
Bill
Excellent.
has a thick wallet.
That's great. Thank you. What a nice donation. Thank you.
So generous.
I thought you were paying for that.
Well, that is one possibility. We've talked about some netting. We've talked about those fake wolves that you can put up there. So Bill, what's the plan on that, Bill? You know more specifics.
Yes.
Well, we
Birds don't know the difference.
we still haven't, no, we still haven't done the repairs. I don't know necessarily know if you get an update on Randy on the status. But the solution is if you, ever been to Abbott's, that's the solution. They put wires, thin wires across the top. Keep the, like at Abbott's to keep the seagulls from eating your lobster dinner. Just put thin wire. Didn't notice that?
Okay, so the bird damage hasn't been fixed yet. Is that true to understanding? Okay. Is it a concern for the winter without that being fixed for leaking and things like that? I don't know what kind of bird damage we have, so.
We'll have to review that.
Yeah, we're gonna have to revisit that and send
Okay.
some people up to take another look
Okay,
and to get that accurate answer for you.
all right. And then have you had a chance to visit on the security cameras and wiring now that we aren't getting the grant for that?
No, 'cause
Okay.
we just found out we didn't get the grant just like, what, 2 weeks ago? 3
Okay,
weeks ago maybe, and, we just haven't, we're just trying to figure out what we can do within the
Okay.
budget, and the vestibules windows are one of the things, so.
okay,
We should revisit all the items for safety.
right. I think we'd want to put those back on the list to start thinking about trying to find a way to fund those now because we do need those, right?
Yeah, I don't think that they shouldn't be secondary as well.
Can I also ask a question? This kind of relates to facilities. And I don't mean to put you on the spot, Troy, but I noticed today at the elementary school, there was a dumpster with things in it.
I'm sorry, a what?
A dumpster.
There's a
And
dumpster over there?
yeah, and I just didn't know if that
You've
was,
been putting your trash in there?
I have not.
Oh, good.
But it looked
You
like,
can't.
it looked like desks and things, I was just
So
curious.
this is a new dumpster that it wasn't there before? Okay, I don't know about you,
Okay,
the
I'm
dumpster
sorry.
that you refer,
Okay.
but I will ask about it and
Yeah, I was
figure it
just
out.
curious. I didn't know if that,
Thanks for pointing it out.
uh,
We may have some clutter that we're getting rid of.
and that's totally fine. I just
Fine.
didn't know if there was some type of construction going on or anything that maybe we could just be briefed on.
Hmm.
Okay. All right,
Yeah,
sorry
I'm
I
not
brought it up.
aware. No, you either. Okay,
Okay,
thank you for pointing it out.
along those lines, storage in the elementary school, I know they've been struggling with that. Should that be looked at and put on a list or evaluated?
Putting it all in a dumpster.
Yeah.
It's the new storage
I
shed.
think a look at storage in the district would be a good thing to just kind of examine what our storage needs, because I think we're crunched in various buildings. And I think that's a great idea, and related to that was the idea of a maintenance shed that we had on this list, a 40 by 30-foot shed, and we decided not to do that for the time being, and we purchased this trailer that's a 40 by 8 foot, a 40 by 8 foot. And for the lawnmowers and the, snow removal equipment, we're going to see how that works. I think this is a good trial year for that, but I think overall, the concept of storage space in the district, we should examine at both buildings and maintenance, and even within this building here, because we are storing some drama stuff here. And we have other things going on in here too, which is great. Good community support hallway now with food pantry and the giving closet for clothes. A really nice collaboration with the town. So it
There's
worked out.
storage on the second floor. There's a couple rooms upstairs filled with desks.
That's right.
I hear Bubbles have a lot of room. Big Bubble.
Oh, are you talking about a sports bubble? Yeah, that's a really good idea, Jeff. I'm glad you came up with that.
So the number we have for the security cameras and the wiring, is that something we'd need to go out to RFP on that? It seems like a little bit larger number. How do we go about doing that and moving forward with that sooner than later?
Yeah, we could, for that, we had already had 2 quotes
Okay.
on that. We could, put it out as an RFP and see if we get other bids on that, or the people that quoted to put in a bid. We could let them know that we got an RFP out. If you want to work, put in for it. Get that going. So we
'Cause
can
I
go.
just feel like
So
we've been
normally
discussing that
for
for a while.
those things we would sort of need to get bids because each company has their own type of equipment
Mhm.
and well, we only use these kind of cameras. The next company says, we only use these kind of cameras. So I agree we should get, so it's hard to have an RFP because, but we have companies come in, they walk around, they tell us what they're going to do.
Okay.
And then we'll get 3, we probably can easily get 3
Yeah. Has
versions.
to be compatible with what we have already.
This is what we want in the big picture. And they'll say, well, we can do it for this. And they'll say, we can do it for that. And they'll say they can do it for that.
All right.
And then we can look at the equipment and Greg is pretty up to speed on the equipment. We'll work with our current equipment. We'll interface with our current cameras. Where's their server? Is there, power out there to run the cameras? There's a lot
Okay.
of, there's a lot of technical stuff that goes along. Because the reason the cameras aren't there, they're too far away from the server and there's not
Right.
enough power and stuff. So there's other issues involved.
All right. So is everybody comfortable asking us to just kind of move forward with getting that pricing for those? And, okay. All right. That'd be fantastic. Thank you. Well, it'll come from the non-lapsing, but we don't have to approve anything yet. We just need to see what it's going to look like. Any other line items that anybody has questions on this right now or wants to discuss?
Playground.
No? Okay. Great. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
We already went through the September financial report. I guess we kind of did those backwards a little bit. The capital list, anything else to discuss on that? It was, like I said, it was sent over to the selectmen. They had it on their agenda last night. I haven't talked to Bob to see what discussion came out of that. Christine Diaz told Troy and I we didn't need to attend, so we don't think there was a lot of discussion on it last night.
Yeah, and just the capital list, it's pretty much the same, from when we discussed it last. I made the changes we talked about, but I did, after talking to Christine Diaz, had to add a few more details to the year 5, and say which particular year of the first 5 years these things were in, and then just rate them in priority for each year. So that's why you see the 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, down the right-hand column. And we did have to supply some backup information for each of these, which Bill and I did. In other words, some kind of quote from a web page or a real quote or something like that, just to show them we're in the ballpark with that estimate. So we did that as well.
Can I just ask? I don't mean to harp on this, but is it worth putting on some field improvements? Not these field improvements, but like a follow-up maybe in 10 years of the current fields that we're doing? Maybe whether it be, I guess I don't know much about fields, but
I think that's a great idea. I hope it won't be necessary to do that if we can come up with that annual maintenance plan
Okay.
and follow it and really budget for each year and make sure that happens. I think we'll be okay. If you want to do something like put in turf, artificial turf, then that actually was on the capital plan. We took it off and we put it on
Yeah.
the other list called the non-capital items. Turf soccer field is on there.
yeah, I just
know.
didn't.
But you're right, like as long as if we get into a situation where we're gonna ignore the fields for a decade, then you're definitely right. We should
We-
say,
well,
all
we
right,
have.
10 years from now, we need, $200,000 to build a field.
Yeah, okay, okay.
We just need to manage it better.
Did we get clarification? Are the interactive boards considered capital?
No, we just, we have them on there. We didn't get clarification yet. We don't know. I think that's gonna be up to the selectmen to determine. And just yesterday, their meeting they had last night, we were told they're just gonna look through what they have and really not, just kind of get aware of what people have submitted and not do a whole lot of discussion and sorting yet. So I don't know. I didn't go to the meeting, but I think that's what I was told.
And just kind of on Jamie's questions about, adding the fields and stuff too. I mean, part of the reason we haven't done it is because we haven't had a non-lapsing account until now. So the fields we've always known it's been a need, but there was never any place to get the money to do it. So it's not that we've been neglectful of it, or I think that the school itself has said it's not important, but there was no capital project. I mean, when you look at the budgeting plan, they're cutting out highway trucks and all kinds of things at every single budget cycle. So to say, I just don't want it to be that we haven't done our due diligence and tried. There just has been no place to do it, which is what makes it so nice to have this non-lapsing account where we're not doing year-end spend, but being a little more strategic about future planning, which I think we can continue to do moving forward.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I guess I'm just worried what happens when we run out, because we have some big ticket items on here, and when that non-lapsing account is a little bit smaller, we're spending a lot of money on something that, maybe if not neglectful, but, maybe different types of environmental issues could cause some problems with the fields. I just want to make sure that we're kind of not in this spot in 10 years from now where we're like, well, we really need to dig another well, or we need to do that, and could we somehow get it on the radar that we need to be reevaluating it maybe in 10 years?
I appreciate that. And some things just you don't know till they come up. Like we didn't know we were gonna have the grub issue till we had the grub issue when the state took away the chemicals that we could use to treat. So some things are just absolutely unforeseeable. I get what you're saying. I think the best thing to do is when you move forward with a project like this is to have a good maintenance plan and really try to do the very best with the thing that you've put in, knowing that obviously somewhere down the road, it does have to be done again, just like our windows will have to be done again, our roof will have to be done again, all of those things. On the capital list at this point. All right, brings us up to policy, the student dress and grooming.
I did print copies if anybody wants them, of what Brian had sent out. I don't know. Okay, I have some here. Here's two.
Last week, I think.
Keep one passing.
I think it's the same.
Did you want one of these? Yeah, okay. Do you want two? Okay. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I had shared this with my administrative team to get their feedback on it. Rob today showed me what's in his handbook, and somewhere here I have oh, here it is. I have a copy of that, but I didn't make copies. Just to see how it aligns. I mean, we're trying to come up with a Board of Ed policy on dress code, which is appropriate to have a Board of Ed policy on dress code. And I think the question is it a general statement in allowing the schools to come up with the more specific regulations on enforcing it for, age appropriate level of kids? Or do you want a dress code, but in some boards do this, have a specific dress code that is quite, clear, so clear that the schools don't really have to have any additional regulations. They could just follow the policy itself. So my my administrators, I shared last time, I shared a draft that we adapted from Cabe's suggestion, which was very gender neutral, updated, and more general language, and it still allows them to come up with the specifics. But our board seems to have wanted to discuss the more specific avenue. My administrators aren't that comfortable with the board going with the more specific route. They would like to have some flexibility of working with their local school community, including their students and teachers, about their dress code and what works for them in their school. But anyway, my administrators are also open to the idea if the board adopts something that's specific, that obviously they have to follow it. So that's my input.
So is there something we can look at of what the administrators prefer?
I
Or-
presented that last time.
Did you?
I handed it out last time. It was in your Board of Ed packet last.
I'll take a look. Maybe. I don't remember.
And no disrespect meant with this, I guess, I feel like that's a little backward. That the purpose of regulations are to be based on the policy, and that the policy shouldn't be set up based around the regulations.
True, and that's why when I presented you a general policy that would be updated from Cade, I suggested, and I'd run up an administrators, they're all fine with it, and they felt like they could work with that. So they wouldn't be working backwards. You would adopt a new general policies, updated, gender neutral, has modern language, and then they would come up with the specifics of what that looks like in their school for their, level of student, age of student.
Was there a specific part of this that they were opposed to?
Yeah,
I think
Yes.
in general, it's pretty open, and I think it lends itself to all schools, which I think also cuts down on confusion. But I'm just curious.
I think that they would love to talk about it when they come for the next meeting. They're going to come and talk about test scores and do a presentation. They would love to have it on the agenda there so that they could more actively engage in this discussion. They could probably address it way better than I can because they all have been here longer. They know their school population and what issues may have come up. They know how they worked with their students and communities to make changes over the years. So I am not able to probably discuss it as well as they could. They all weren't comfortable with the idea of like just, they don't feel like you need to list the words breast, genitals, and buttocks. That's just one thing.
I think it would be good to hear from them. I also think it would be good for them to understand what things with the current dress code issues are that we have an issue with. I
Yeah.
think we're kind of skirting around maybe some of the things that in our current dress coding, and I don't know what's going on at the elementary, but speaking to the middle school, high school, that we're hearing are kind of an issue. So if we can kind of say, well, we kind of think these things are an issue, is it really that we have to, me personally, first of all, I don't know what opaque fabric is. I'd like to have it covered with solid fabric. I don't want to see your nipple through opaque fabric. I would like it to be solid. I don't know why we're using the word opaque.
Opaque means unable to see through.
Oh, I thought it was like
That's another
kind of,
word, synonym for solid.
okay. So that's my mistake. I was thinking it was kind of like whatever.
Semi-solid.
There is no
right.
translucent fabric here.
I think that it's an excellent policy. It's got a lot of great detail in it. It gives the administrators absolutely no room for using their own judgment. And I don't know that that's the kind of policies we want to be putting into play.
I mean,
There is a line item somewhere that says, oh, and the admins can use their judgment, but it seems so incredibly detailed to me. And maybe that's what the board wants. This other one seems to give a very good overview of what we're looking for, with administration having the option of making those determinations. But I think an open dialogue conversation with them would make a lot of sense to what our concern is in the current policy, and maybe what their concern is with the restriction on this one, and if we can come up to some kind of happy medium or meet in the middle, or maybe we just adopt the one we want. It is entirely up to us. I don't know how everybody else feels about that. I know we don't want to keep pushing this one off. I also, Steph isn't here. I know this one is very important to her, so I would like her to be able to weigh in as well.
Yeah, I like to hear what the admin have to say.
Yeah, I think we need to have a little bit more open dialogue with them. They're the ones that have to enforce this. And they're the ones that see what's going on in their school every single day, not necessarily every school across, the country, but what we see here at Wheeler and at North Stonington Elementary. So if everybody's okay with it, I would like them to be able to weigh in on it and just have some open dialogue about it.
I agree. I think collaboration is always a good thing, especially if there's an area, that someone's uncomfortable. I don't want the administrators to be uncomfortable, with this policy. So yeah, I think that's a good idea.
I also hope that maybe we could get some student feedback as well. Maybe some of the issues that they may be feeling as with the current policy and what they maybe would like to see. So is it possible even just to get our student representatives to have a copy of both policies just to see what the take from the students would be?
Yeah, absolutely. We can check the game schedule too. I don't know if both of them will be in games in 2 weeks, but it is fall
That's
sports are
fair.
tough. Okay.
That's near the end of our season, so except for tournaments.
Yeah.
You should be all right.
So, so are you guys okay with that? Like I said, I don't want to keep moving it down, but at the same time, I think it's really important. I think it gets a lot of, talk. So if we can all be on the same page before we adopt something, that would be a good. All right. And then that brings us up to the community relations, general and community relations, parent involvement.
So these are both meant to be first reads. But generally speaking, the plan going forward is to try and just move piece by piece through policy, pick out and go in order and see if we continue to move forward. I know that the bylaw piece was one that I wanted to wait. Steph, I know had the request to maintain that in terms of discussion. And so she's not here. I'm curious to see if she has things that she wanted to look at on that. But with these, there's a little bit of confusion here, and the reason is because the policy 1100 and the policy 1110.1 is how we have this piece set up. The CABE versions of those are what Irma attached. What I passed out to you all is what is actually in what's called the CABE model policy book. So they don't have an 1100 at all. What they have is an 1110 and then an 1110.1. So the separate piece that I passed out to you, that was just a separate little packet like this. This is the policy that is in CABE's model policy book, which is different than the CABE model policies that are attached to the original board packet. Does that make sense? Because we don't have to adopt all of the policies, and the way that we have set ours up is different than the way CABE has their model one set up. So the way CABE basically CABE put together a fake policy book that is a handbook for, hey, listen, this is if we had our own school district, how we would set it up. That would be this handout that I gave you. The other ones that are the CABE policy services ones are their model policies that they're offering up if we wanted to continue with our 1100 instead of moving to an 1110. Questions? Because I know it's difficult because the numbers are close to each other. So it's just a bunch of ones and zeros. It's like we're talking in binary. But we have some policy, we have some issues with ours. Most importantly, once again, on our 1100 policy, we have a regulation and a policy in play. which means that if you open up what we have as our policy, the first page and onto the second is our policy at the moment. And then when it has the 1100 a second time, that is actually our regulation, not our policy. So one way or another, I think if everybody is amenable to it, I think our general process should be that we're removing, because I feel like this is the way the board is moving, that we're removing regulations from our policy handbook. So when in doubt, that would be my recommendation moving forward. I think that we want to remove those regulations from the policy handbook so that we only have the policy in play. So what we would be asking the board to do at the moment is to take a look, read through policy 1100 and then 1110.1, which are our current policies, see if there are things you're concerned with, and then take a look at both the handout that you got that has the 1110 and the 1110.1. The 1110.1 there, I believe, has 3 versions of the possible 1110.1. Some things to pay attention to. Our current policy says that our minutes are supposed to be posted onto our website within 72 hours in unapproved form. This one says 7 days, which seems far more reasonable.
Yeah.
So just take into account the idea that we want to at least make sure that we're taking a look at our timelines of getting these things up and set. I do believe that our minutes are not necessarily as much of a pressing issue when what we have are video recorded copies of our meetings that if people have a concern, they can immediately access and take a look at and get what actually happened. So I do believe that there was a time when people needed those minutes immediately so that they could find out what happened and find out votes. I think that the vote piece does come into play, that vote should be posted, but otherwise it doesn't seem like we need a 3-day turnaround to get minutes up. Also take into account the idea that those CABE model policies are also an option that we can go. So we can keep the current way that we have them set up with our 1100 and then our 1110.1 based on the CABE model policies that you have in the other piece here. So take a look at all of those. I know you have nothing better to do in your evenings. And if we can come back for the second meeting and perhaps just come up with, as a board, do you like the idea of moving to the 1110 like the model handbook? Do you want to stay with the 1100? If you want to go to the 1110 on the 1110.1, is there a version that you find better? And otherwise, I believe the 1110.1 over here is one version. Yeah. Certainly.
It seems like the 1110 is about distribution of printed material and the 1100 is communications with the public.
So it's all
And then 1110.1 is communications with the public, parent involvement. Am I reading that wrong? It's like 3 different pieces. One is communications with the public, one is distribution of material, and the other one is parent involvement.
So our current 1100 is communication with the public. And our 1110 is communication with the public in terms of the distribution of printed material. But
And then
our
our 11
general aspect, the CABE model policy book has nothing regarding general aspects of communications with the public. I am not sure why that would be removed.
Well, that's the 1100 in there.
But they're 11, so that is an optional policy to consider from CABE, but on their model handbook, it is not present. So if you go onto the CABE website, you have, with our sign-in, you have access to the CABE model policy handbook. They set it up like they would set it up. And in their setup, they do not have 1100 as anything in play. So they have 1110 that covers certain pieces of the same sort of information that's in 1100, and then they have 1110.1. Again, first read, if you have any questions, right? I'm happy because I know we have access to more policy resources than all of the board. So if you're confused as to why one, I can also print out, well, I can't print out the 1100 that you have here that would match our 1100 is not one that CABE puts in their model handbook. So they just eliminate this altogether. It's not a required, it's an optional policy.
The only comment I had is I went through them and kind of, nice comments on what the right things to do, but do you really need them? Does it?
Well, and again, so the 1100 is entirely optional, right? It doesn't fall within, it basically,
I'm
it was not recommended for deletion. I think because what we don't have is the 1110. So in our North Stonington handbook, we don't have an 1110, but we do have an 1100. In the CABE one, they have the 1110, but no 1100. And so what it comes down to is,
But we don't.
do
need
we
to have-
care? Do we want it?
Right. We don't need to have everything that CAPE has. right?
No, we don't.
Right.
And we honestly, even though these have certain statutes that are in there, they are not actually required policies. So even our 1100, so our 1100 is an optional policy and the 1110 is not required, or else they would have put it into our policy. When we did our whole rundown, they don't include it as something that we should add.
But the
Right.
1110.1 is required.
The 1110.1 is required because it talks about the use of confidential material and some other things that come into play. And there's some pieces of that in the 1110 that's not in the 1100. So in the 1110, it had to do with public records and meetings. But again, I don't see much in either of those, but the 1110.1 had to do with distribution of materials at some point.
Yeah, my thought is if it's a requirement from the state and it's something that helps drive us to be compliant in something, then sure, let's put it in. Otherwise, why add stuff that really you look at it and say, yep, okay, I know what it says. I do it anyway. But I don't know. It's just why have policies that really don't do much?
Which if you read through our bylaws, I feel like a lot of those follow that same pattern where you read through them and you're like, well, duh. Like, I mean, it seems silly, but you're like, well, how would you not have that be the way you do things? And
But there may be a time when there's not as functional of a board as we are. And then
They
you-
can always come back and
And
change it.
you
so.
might want to, right, but you might want to have the bylaw to fall back on in a different situation. I mean, we might think it's common sense and it happens, but it doesn't always. So it maybe would be
Certain
sensible to
policies
have
as
it.
well. I think just because it's not required by the state, certain policies we should have. Our CABE recommended,
So is your
not that we
feeling
have all the
this one is the
recommended
required one?
policies, but there are some policies that suit our school.
No,
I think,
no doubt, and
I mean,
totally
that's not-
agree.
yeah.
But in reading a couple of these, it's like
No, I
really
get it.
bring to the table
Mhm.
my mind. So rather than saying stuff that
Yeah.
massively
Yeah, you don't want to have a
complicated.
policy just to have a policy.
Right, I
you
think
know, yeah.
that's the problem that we have. We have too many policies. Maybe that's what we start thinking about paring down a little bit. Whatever.
You think still? We do?
No,
Because we,
it's going great, but kind of just another example of if we don't need it, then don't.
Okay.
sorry, I was just talking with Christine under my breath, and I realized I should say this into the mic to everybody. The one thing I really like about the the 1110, too many ones and zeros. The 1110, one of the things I really like is that it does focus on the distribution of printed material, and I think that that's one of the things that can come into play with how do we get things out to people? How can they get information from us, and what our process is? That would be the only thing is that I like that because I think the printed material piece of things is what anybody can see and look back on, and the idea that we have some plan regarding how we use it. Again, is it a lot of fluff? Yeah, it kind of is. right? It's some feel good words, but I don't think it's a terrible thing to have. The 110.1, the 1110.1, I believe is something that we have to have. It's not 100% required, and we could do something different, but it's a safety thing by discussing that aspect of parent-teacher communication and those other pieces. It's one of the things that can fall under some state regulation. So it's nice to have something stated out in policy. So if you read through and you're like, I don't like the 1100 or the 1110, we can eliminate both of those. And I don't believe that there's no fallout from doing so. So if you look at that and you don't think they're necessary and we would rather get rid of them, awesome. The 1110.1, I think we need to have some version of it. So whether it be the CABE recommended policy you have or one of the 3 ones that are on the second to third page of the handout I gave you, we should come up with one of those and make sure it's updated within our handbook would be how I would see it. So read through them. Again, the goal is to give them to you with plenty of time to be able to think, talk, and figure it out. If you have questions, please, again, there's more resources on CABE that I don't believe everyone has the login for those policy processes, which means that if you have questions and you're not sure, Lisa and I can certainly print out things or send them to you or email you copies of those things. So
Is it possible for all of us to have?
Yeah,
some
every member
passkey?
should have a CABE login for the members portal. And then you would have a copy of that. You'd be able to access that. So if you don't have it, you can just reach out to CABE directly and they'll give you a login. Because that's where you see every other quarter's newsletter comes out electronically. It comes in print 1 month and then it comes in.
Well, yeah, I received that in the email and I have the passkey
Right.
to get on, but I was not given the passkey until I was on the policy committee.
and we had to actually fight for it because they kept changing the password and we
It does. It changes quite frequently. All you have to do is reach out to CABE and tell them you're a member of the Board of Ed, and then they will give you a pass key to get into the member services. Okay. No, there's nothing to change. It's just for viewing. Yeah. And there's good information in there besides just policy. There's a lot of other things in there as well. All right. Thank you for.
they have some really good hot button policy topics that are interesting to look at because they'll basically tell you what other districts are struggling with and what we might be able to do to be proactive. I think that's one of the best pieces on there. So
Thanks for doing that. Let's see. Comments for future agenda items? Any?
We just talked about old business having the warrant, marquee, whatever, just put
I got
put
that.
that as a, yeah.
Let's see. And any other public comment? Everybody dropped off. This was not exciting. As soon as we got to policy, everybody hung up. We're all done.
I'll make a motion to adjourn if nothing else.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained. Are you sure? It's only 7:45, 7:55.